The last message I received from my son wasn't a voicemail or a text or even a letter. It was a video file, barely 60 seconds long, recorded on a dusty smartphone in a remote, hostile place, and it had been painstakingly edited together with a series of photographs and a piece of music I hadn't heard in years. I got it 3 days after I got the knock on the door that every military parent dreads. The core of this story, the thing that has haunted me for the last 4 years, is not the message itself, but the choice I had to make right after I watched it. Whether to honor his final request, a request that involved exposing a massive, painful secret he had spent his entire life hiding from me. I ask you, as someone who has lived through the deepest grief imaginable, was I wrong to choose his truth over my own peace? Tell me if you would have done the same thing. My son, Thomas, was the kind of kid who was born with a sense of purpose. He was disciplined, quiet, and possessed an intense, almost frightening focus. From the time he was a teenager, he knew he wanted to be a soldier. I, his father, always dreamed he'd be a writer, maybe a teacher, something safe. I am a university librarian, a man who finds comfort and order in the Dewey Decimal System. His mother, my ex-wife Sarah, who passed away before he turned 10, was a painter, wild and free. Thomas had his father's structure, but his mother's restless soul. He graduated high school and immediately enlisted, going into the Army infantry. We had our fights about it, those classic father-son battles where both of you are fighting for the same thing, love and protection, but using the wrong weapons. I saw the military as a dangerous path to an early grave. He saw it as the only path to a meaningful life. We compromised, I suppose, by simply not talking about it much. He'd call, we'd talk about football, the weather, and his sister Emily, who was in college. But we never talked about the real danger. We never talked about his feelings. His last deployment was to a place I'll only call the Valley, a deeply remote and strategically sensitive region. Communications were always spotty, but Thomas made a point of calling me once a week, always on a Saturday morning, just before 8 a.m. I cherished those calls. The last one I got, about a month before the knock, was brief. He sounded tired, his voice gravelly. He asked how the old oak tree in the backyard was doing, the one he and Emily used to climb. It was such a small, mundane detail, but it now feels like a profound sign of homesickness, a tether to the life he was fighting to protect. Then came the morning of the knock. It was a Tuesday. I was on my way out the door to work when I saw the familiar, rigid posture of 2 uniformed officers walking up my front path. Time didn't slow down like they say in movies. It just stopped existing. Everything became an echo. The officers were young, their faces somber and practiced. They delivered the news with clinical professionalism. Private First Class Thomas Michael Vance was killed in action. A tragic accident involving a sudden skirmish and an IED. My world ended right there on my doormat. The grief was a physical thing, a black hole in my chest that sucked all the light and air out of the world. Emily flew home immediately, and we moved through the next few days in a daze, planning a funeral for a boy who should have been planning his own future. It was 3 days after the news, late at night, that a package arrived. It was a small, heavily padded envelope with an unfamiliar return address, a nondescript logistics company near his base. Inside was a rugged, old military-issue smartphone. It wasn't the one Thomas usually used to call me. It was dusty, scuffed, and taped shut with a note stuck to the back. The note, written in Thomas's unmistakable, careful script, simply read, "Dad, watch the last file, don't delete it. Keep the phone safe, love you, T." My hands were shaking so violently I almost dropped the phone. Emily was asleep on the sofa, exhausted from the funeral preparations. I walked into the kitchen, the small light from the ceiling fixture creating long, nervous shadows. I opened the phone. The battery was almost dead, glowing a faint red, but it was just enough. There was only one file in the gallery, a video titled "For Dad." I hit play. The video started abruptly. It was shaky, filmed in what looked like a small, cluttered, mud-walled room, lit by a single, weak bulb. Thomas was sitting against the wall, his uniform dirt-stained, his face drawn and weary, but his eyes were as intense as ever. He wasn't looking at the camera. He was looking past it, maybe at the person holding it. He started speaking in a low, rushed voice. "Hey, Dad, if you're watching this, I guess things didn't work out. I don't have much time, so I need to be fast." His voice caught for a second. A flicker of fear and deep sadness I had never heard from him before. He took a deep breath. "I wanted you to know first that I love you. You were a good father, the best. I know we had our issues, but I always looked up to you." My vision blurred with tears as I watched his strained face. "And tell Emily I love her more than anything, and she needs to finish school." Then the video cut abruptly. The tone shifted completely. It wasn't Thomas talking anymore. It was a fast-paced slideshow of photographs, clearly taken on this very phone. The music that played over the top was the part that broke me. It was an old 80s track, "If I Could Turn Back Time," by Cher, his mother Sarah's favorite song. It was the song we danced to, just the three of us, in our living room when he was 4 years old. The photos were stunning. They weren't typical battlefield snapshots. They were artistic, hauntingly beautiful shots of the region. Desolate mountain ranges, sunsets over dusty peaks, and intimate, candid photos of his unit mates laughing, sharing a meal, or huddled together for warmth. But then came the sequence that stopped my heart. There were 4 photos, all taken in quick succession, of Thomas with another soldier. The soldier was a young woman, maybe Thomas's age, with bright, fiercely intelligent eyes and a smile that radiated pure light. In the first picture, they were standing awkwardly side by side. In the second, they were laughing, their helmets off, their faces close. The third photo was the one that made me collapse onto the kitchen floor. Thomas was holding her close, kissing her deeply, the emotion raw and undeniable. And the final photo was a close-up of the woman's face, her eyes shining with joy, holding up her left hand. On her ring finger was a simple silver band. Thomas was married. The slideshow stopped. The final minute of the video returned to Thomas, his face more resolved now, but his eyes shimmering with unshed tears. "Dad," he said, the word I plea. "I know this is a lot. The photos there of Elara, she was everything to me. We got married 6 months ago. No ceremony, obviously, just the paperwork. She's a translator, part of special unit. She knows things, important things about this operation, things the command doesn't want out. Things about what really happened in the valley, why we were really here. She's not military, so she's got less protection. They told us we couldn't tell anyone. We had a pact, but now it's just me, and I'm scared for her. I need you to find her. The marriage certificate and the rest of the documentation is encrypted on this phone. The password is Oaktree8. She's somewhere in Istanbul. I promised her she wouldn't be alone. Please, Dad, she's my wife. She needs you now. Don't tell anyone about this, especially the army. Just find my wife and tell her I love her." The video cut to black. The phone died. I sat there in the dark kitchen, the silence of the house pressing down on me, clutching the cold, dead phone. Thomas, my quiet, dutiful son, had been living a second life, a secret marriage, carrying a weight of classified information, and now he was dead. And his final, desperate wish was not for me to grieve, but for me to undertake a mission, find his secret wife and protect her from whatever danger he was referring to. So that's the situation I was in. My son, whom I thought I knew entirely, had kept his whole married life and a seemingly dangerous secret operation hidden from me. I had just buried him, and now I was holding a dead phone with his final confession and a perilous, impossible request. Before I tell you what happened next, before I decided whether to call the military and hand over the phone, or use the last vestiges of my savings to fly to Turkey and chase a ghost, I want you to pause and comment below what you would have done in my shoes. Would you have honored your son's final, secret wish, or would you have prioritized your safety and your peace? I didn't call the army. I didn't call Emily. I called my sister, Carol, a pragmatic lawyer who lives a quiet life in Seattle. She flew out the next morning. I didn't tell her everything, just that Thomas had left behind some complicated financial and legal issues that required a trip abroad. We spent the day sorting his affairs, gathering documents, and most importantly, I managed to charge the phone using a universal charger I had, one of those ancient things from the 90s. The password worked. The encrypted folder contained a scanned marriage certificate, dozens of photos, and a long, detailed document written in both English and a language I didn't recognize, which appeared to be a classified military report. It was full of acronyms and jargon, but the context was clear. Thomas and his wife, Elara, were concerned about what they described as a series of deliberate miscommunications and cover-ups related to a failed rescue mission a few months prior, one that resulted in significant, undisclosed loss of life. Thomas's unit was involved. The implication was that Thomas and Elara were preparing to blow the whistle. I booked a flight to Istanbul for the following morning. I took a few weeks of leave from the library. Carol, seeing the strange intensity in my eyes and my unusual secrecy, became worried. "You're not doing anything reckless, are you, Arthur?" she asked, her voice tight with concern. I simply told her, "I'm doing the last thing my son asked me to do." That was enough to quiet her protests, but not her fear. Landing in Istanbul was like stepping into a dream, a world away from the quiet suburban grief I had left behind. I felt ridiculously out of place, an academic in a world of espionage and shadows. I had only Elara's name, her approximate location from the marriage certificate, and a single, recent photo from the phone. My plan was pathetic. I walked the streets near the address, showing the photo to local shopkeepers, hoping for a miracle. For 2 days, I found nothing. On the third day, I was sitting in a small, crowded coffee shop, feeling defeated, when I heard someone speaking English with a distinct, non-American accent, mentioning the name Thomas. My heart leaped. I looked up and saw 2 men in business suits, speaking in hushed tones over a map. I couldn't hear much, but I heard one of them say, "The widow Vance. She will cause problems." My librarian instinct, honed by decades of finding obscure texts, kicked in. I discreetly followed them. They led me to a quiet, residential area, and one of the men went into an apartment building. I waited. Half an hour later, I saw the woman from the photo step out of the same building, Elara. She was wearing simple civilian clothes, but she moved with the efficiency of a trained soldier. She looked stressed, tired, and scared, but beautiful. I walked up to her, my voice catching in my throat. "Elara?" I asked. She stopped dead, her eyes widening, instantly defensive. "Who are you?" she demanded, her hands subtly moving into a protective position. "My name is Arthur Vance," I said, tears suddenly welling up. "I'm Thomas's father." The moment she heard Thomas's name, her rigid posture collapsed. The fierce soldier melted into a heartbroken young woman. I told her about the officers, about the funeral, and finally, about the phone. I pulled it out and showed her the note in Thomas's handwriting. She took the phone, saw the cracked screen, and the tears started to flow. She knew she had been waiting for his final message. We went to a private, quiet place, and she told me everything. She confirmed the documents, the cover-up was real. A handful of commanders had deliberately misled troops into a dangerous ambush to achieve a specific tactical goal, prioritizing the objective over the lives of their men. Thomas had found evidence, and Elara, as the translator, was the key witness. They had been planning to release the information through an anonymous international organization as soon as their tour was over. Thomas's accident, she believed, was no accident at all, but a targeted assassination to silence him before he could expose the truth. She was hiding because she believed she was next. I spent the next week with my daughter-in-law, a complete stranger who was suddenly family, helping her. I wasn't a soldier, but I was a father, and I had Thomas's final command. I used my skills, research, organization, and networking. I didn't try to go to the media. I knew that would only put Elara in more danger. Instead, Carol, my lawyer sister, became our unwitting ally. I sent her the encrypted report, telling her it was a legal document regarding Thomas's life insurance payout, which needed to be reviewed for accuracy. Carol, being a meticulous lawyer, flagged the inconsistencies and the military jargon. Elara and I worked on translating and authenticating the documents. I used the contacts I had from the university scholars, human rights lawyers, and foreign policy experts to find a secure, credible avenue to release the information. We eventually contacted a respected NGO that specialized in military accountability and had the legal resources to protect Elara. The climax wasn't a firefight, it was a paperwork war. Elara, with my support, provided a detailed, notarized testimony along with the proof Thomas had gathered. The NGO reviewed the evidence and decided to proceed. The fallout was immediate and explosive. An international inquiry was launched. The initial reports were stonewalled by the military, but the evidence was too clear, too well documented. Several high-ranking officers were quietly, then publicly, relieved of duty and faced courts-martial. The truth about the failed rescue mission and the unnecessary deaths that followed finally came to light. It didn't bring Thomas back, but it ensured his sacrifice, and the sacrifice of his comrades was not in vain, and that their deaths stood for the truth, not a cover-up. Elara was given asylum and witness protection in a third country, somewhere safe and quiet. Before she left, we had a proper, tearful goodbye. She gave me the simple silver ring. He wore one just like it. She whispered, "Now you keep this safe, Father." I had found the wife he couldn't tell me about, and in doing so, I had gained a daughter. The relationship with my sister Carol was strained for a while. She felt I had lied to her and put her at risk, which was true. But eventually, she understood that I was operating under a higher law, the silent contract between a father and his son. The aftermath is quiet, but heavy. The black hole of grief is still there, but it is now ringed by a strange, fierce pride. Thomas died a hero, not just on the battlefield, but as a man of integrity willing to expose corruption at the highest level. I never told the army about the phone or the message, and I never will. I kept the phone, the one Thomas used for his final act of defiance and love. Sometimes I look at the photos, the last fragments of his secret life, and I feel him close. The greatest tragedy was losing him, but the greatest honor was fulfilling his final wish, and securing the safety of the wife he loved. The quiet librarian found his courage not in books, but in the echoes of his son's last message. I wasn't wrong to dig into his secrets. His secrets were a final gift of truth. I wear the silver band on a chain around my neck now. It's a constant reminder that the quiet ones often carry the heaviest burdens and the greatest courage. It's the final, tangible piece of the love story he died protecting. I hope I did right by him. Like this video if you were on my side and believe the truth should always come out, no matter the cost. Subscribe for more stories like this that explore the difficult choices people have to make when life hits hardest. And please, share your final thoughts on this whole mess in the comments section. Did I go too far, or did I simply do what any father would do? I'll see you all in the next story.